Quinn looked to the horizon as the corn stalks swayed with the breeze. The corn itself could have been waving hello, or it could have been breathing. Adam Cesare, Clown in a Cornfield. Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I'm joined by author Adam Cesare to discuss his new young adult horror novel, Clown in a Cornfield, coming out in August from Harper Teen. Adam, welcome to the show.
This is the most professional podcast introduction I've ever been a part of. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sorry, I should have had the air horns blasting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where's the reggaeton air horn? Yeah.
So, I know you're a big horror fan. What's your history with horror?
My history with horror. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think my history with horror is it's all movies and books are all kind of wrapped up for me and all kind of tangled up, and I feel like I don't have a particular one inciting event of horror. I've just always, like, some of my earliest memories are kind of going to the video store and like passing the horror section and like being scared but compelled by the kind of covers. So that was before even like being able to read. I feel like the supermarket that we used to go to on Long Island had this like had a little video rental section. I don't people that doesn't happen so much now. Those covers and being like, oh, that movie's not for me, but I want it to be. So like that, and then a combined just being in a household where reading was valued, and in a household where it was like, no, you can choose to like what you kind of want to like. So I always very early gravitated towards, no, I want to read the scary stuff. I want to read the spooky stuff. So I think that's kind of my history of horror, where it's like, it's not a super compelling, interesting answer because it's like, I can't think of a time where it wasn't horror, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of a time where I wasn't into scary stuff. And like when I was in middle school and high school, I had a teacher that called me morbid. Like that's like that's the kind of kid I was. And it's like not like, and I'm not trying to like big time anyone with like my horror cred. It's just like that's just it. It's always been that. And I love all other kinds of movies. I like Disney movies. I like westerns. Like I like a lot of different things. And I'm a film fan and a book fan, and I like literary fiction and things, and I like reading plays. But if I circle back to a genre, it's always horror.
I can see that. I'm the same way. And I do remember our grocery store had a little video rental place too. Right after the checkout, you'd go and you'd look around.
Yeah, after the checkout, it was like separated a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like it was its own kind of business, but it was in the video store. Like that's like a piece of nostalgia you don't get a lot of. Like people talk about like mom and pop video stores and stuff like that. No one has nostalgia for the most mundane of video stores. But yeah, no, they used to be there. Yeah.
I remember that, going to pick up like Nickelodeon movies, Harriet the Spy, stuff like
that.
Oh yeah, that was. So tell us about Clown in a Cornfield for people that don't know what it's about.
Clown in a Cornfield is about a teenager. It's a YA book. They're all about teenagers, but it is about a young woman who her and her dad kind of go through some like personal tragedy, and the dad's actually having a harder time coping than the daughter is, and she's our protagonist, and her name's Quinn, and we follow her as like this attempt to kind of have the dad get his footing leads to he takes a job in the middle of the country. They're from Philadelphia. They move to Kettle Springs, Missouri, this small town where it's like a very big change of pace for her. And it's about that. A lot of it's about that central relationship of the mother and the daughter, or the father and the daughter, and her trying to assimilate into this life, into this kind of small town life that's very different than what she grew up with. But at the same time, she's walking into kind of a slasher movie she didn't know she was walking into. There is like there is an original sin in this town. The kids of this town are having to atone for something, and she's literally walking in right in the middle of this clown, friend of the clown. It is the Kettle Springs mascot. He is taking out people left and right, and they're trying to figure out why and what's going on. So that's Clown in the Cornfield. It is a literary slasher novel for teens and adults.
Oh, I loved it.
Thank you so much. I haven't gotten to talk to a lot of people who've read it, so it's very, very cool to talk to you, and it's even cooler that you liked it.
Yeah, I know Rachel and I both liked it a lot, and it reminded me of like, I don't know, the kind of like 90s teen slashers that I haven't seen in a while. Just kind of like the fun of that. It had a lot of depth to it. Like you said, I can definitely see the literary thing talking about the issues, like the tragedy of why she is there, and touching a little bit on, a generational divide and a lot of other stuff. And I really liked it.
And I want to scare everyone off with saying literary. It's like literary with a very little L. It is a pulp novel, but it has themes. I tried.
Not to worry, it is a lot of fun, can't put down type of story. Why did you decide to go YA this time?
It's a weird chicken or the egg kind of conversation, because I kind of realized I was talking with Patrick Lacey. His wife Emily is a writer as well, and a poet. She's got like a master's degree in like in YA fiction, like specifically in YA fiction. So I was having a conversation with her, and I was just like, what is, like, define for me, like, what are the parameters? And she's like, there really are no parameters. It just has to have a teen protagonist. Like, that has to be that's like the one kind of golden rule, and then everything else, the lines all blur. And I was like, well, if you go by that measurement, like, I've written like 3 YA, like I've written like 3 books where they're, teen protagonists, so that they weren't marketed as YA. And I just think I just saw it, and like you kind of said, I Know What You Did Last Summer and the Screams and the Urban Legends and there was that, that was the last kind of great wave of slashers, and it's a genre I love so much, and like, from its inception and from like the proto slashers of like the 70s, pre-Halloween proto slashers, to like the most formalized gore movies of like the 80s. And it's just not a genre. It's an endemically filmic genre. So you don't get a lot of slasher books. Like you get some, and especially more in the indie side, you get some, and I've written like a couple, but it felt to me like, if you're going to do a teen slasher, it's a YA novel, in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to do the best possible version of that, because it's a genre I love so much that I like. And I was also like, well, if this is going to be my first YA book, and if, kids are going to be picking this up, like, I say kids, but I mean teens. I don't mean to belittle any teens listening, because they are smart people. I'm like naturally anxious guy. So I was like, if this is a kid's first horror book, like we were talking about, like if someone, the cover's awesome. Matt Ryan Tobin did an amazing cover. So it's like, if a kid saw that cover and they hadn't read, they don't have the background in horror that we have. They're like, oh, let me try a scary book. And then I'd be so bummed if they were like, well, this sucked. And then like they never tried it again. So I was just like, I'm going to swing as hard for the fences as I possibly can in this go. And that's why it's YA this time.
That's awesome. And that is putting a bit of pressure on yourself.
Well, it's not. I don't want to. I'm not saying it in like a conceited way. I'm not like, oh, well, it's the best slash. I was just saying I wanted to do the best I humanly could do, just in case it was some teen's first horror book. So, and I wanted people who liked my stuff to enjoy it too. So it's got to please a lot of masters, and hopefully it does.
I'm sure it will. So your other books were published on the indie side. So did you notice any differences with going the traditional route this time?
The process is very similar until you get to a certain point and you're like, wait a second, like they are putting this through the paces to a level I have not yet had to kind of answer for. My other books are very good, but there's a level of polish and a level of this all has to add up, and this has to be good, and your prose has to be as on point as it can be, which I really appreciated. And there's more people on an email chain. It was more editors kind of putting different hats on, like, which I liked. I felt like I was supported by, and I enjoyed the process. It's just a little different. Like, and there is a certain amount of, not freedom, but like there is a certain something to like the indie scene, like something like the con season, which I it's only that's like the only book that I truly self-published. All the rest of them had, even if they were indie publishers, they had somewhat traditional editor relationship, acquiring relationship. But the Conce's is the one book where I fully put that out myself, and I'd hired like a copy editor and a line editor and things, and they made suggestions. But they're like I had final cut on as purely as I could on that book, and it's just one extra kind of guardrail to, is this telling the best story, or is this telling the story in the best possible way? And I felt like there was a little bit more a safety net there, where I wasn't just going crazy. Oh, I'll make the ending as ambiguous as possible, and half the people will be super pissed, but the people that like it will really like it. Like I wasn't going to kind of get away with that at a certain extent. There was always that reminder of like, this is going to be a hardcover in a lot of bookstores. Like, you should try to make people happy and not upset them. Which I guess that just shows that I'm like a little bit of a troll with some of my books.
No, a lot of horror does that. But yeah, I can see, especially like you said, if this is someone's first horror book, you don't want them throwing it across the room.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So in your books, you've dabbled in a lot of different subgenres and types of stories. What would you say is your favorite? Is it the slasher, like you mentioned earlier?
I want to say it's a slasher, but that's kind of a boring answer because I like kind of just gave that answer. That's the thing. Especially in the first few books, I very consciously was like, what if I just do a different genre each time, like a different subgenre each time, and then I'll just do putting my ego aside, like my version of a alien story, my version of a giant monster story, my version of a folk horror story. Like, what if I just do that, and like the thing that changes is my style is look, there's like the idea of like TV tropes, that website, like TV tropes.
Yeah.
Like, there is a double-edged sword to the idea that not everyone's a critic, but everyone is more media savvy and more literary savvy than they've kind of ever been in like the history of TV, movies, and books. Like, people know what the tropes are. People know what the cliches of certain things are. I don't view the idea of a trope or the idea of a story type as any kind of, that's not if I recognize a story type in a movie, I'm not immediately like, oh, it's one of those. Like, there's only so many stories. Like, I feel like some readers do kind of like, it was predictable or unoriginal. Like, there is some kind of art in the telling. Like, you could tell a familiar story in an interesting and artful and surprising way through your themes and characters. So I really just don't view my books that way. I don't view them as like, oh, I'm playing with these cliches. I never say cliches. I'd say like, yes, I'm engaging with these tropes in such a way to produce a book that's like Video Night. It's about kids and aliens. Like, yes, it's reminiscent of Night of the Comet and Night of the Creeps, a lot of Night of movies, but I hopefully original in a certain way. And same with Summer Job, which is pre-Midsummer, but dealing with like things like The Wicker Man and City of the Dead. And so I really like the idea that there are these set subgenres and tropes in horror, and they're just a playground. They're just offering you a place to go in a world to kind of a shorthand to engage with an audience on. So I don't really, I love them all. I don't even have like a least favorite. I don't even have stuff like maybe like zombies. I find myself a tiny bit turned off by, like, just, and even that I'm like full of baloney, because like my favorite movie is Dawn of the Dead. Like, I love zombie stuff. Like I love zombie stuff. It's just a certain level of like, well, we've seen a lot of that recently. That's really the only thing. Like, familiarity is the only thing or like over familiarity is the only thing that'll keep me away from something. Other than that, I like it all. I like all genres, subgenres.
God, have you made your way out to the Monroeville Mall out here?
I have. Or is that where you are?
Yeah.
Oh, I've like looked it up because I'm a recent, not similar, within like 7 years ago, transplant to Philly. My wife is from the area, kind of moved down here after school, and when we she looked at me like I was crazy, because like the first week we were down here, I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do this weekend? We should go out to the Monroeville Mall. She's like, you realize it's like 4 hours away, right? I'm like, oh no. One day I'll get out there. Once there's malls again, I'll get out there.
Yeah. Once there's interaction with other people and stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of horror readers appreciate the tropes and people playing within the playgrounds of certain subgenres. I mean, that's Books in the Freezer wouldn't be here without the tropes.
And I think horror genre, like more than most fans of a lot of different things, like more than like sci-fi and fantasy, they're a lot more willing to kind of roll with that, just because I don't know, just because horror fans are better, I guess.
I know on your YouTube channel you do a lot of movie book pairings. So what pairings would go with Clown in a Cornfield?
That's a really good question. Well, I have a YouTube channel, and then recently I've gotten really lazy with what constitutes the book recommendation. It'll just be what I read that week. It'll have no connective tissue to the thing. But I want to think of an actual good one for Clown. One of the people we're working with, Temple Hill Entertainment, is trying to make the movie of Clown in a Cornfield, and he had actually brought up a great comparison because it's not super well seen. I mean, I think people know it and horror fans know it, but All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. I would say that is if we were going to say a movie to pair with this book, I really like that movie. It stars Amber Heard. It's a slasher, but it's post Scream, so it's taking it a little bit less meta, a little bit more straightforward, but still adhering to the kind of the rules and the structure of the traditional slasher, but it's surprising in a lot of ways. I like that movie a lot. So that would be my, if you're gonna read Clown in a Cornfield and you want a movie to go with it, I'd say All the Boys Love Mandy Lane.
Right. So yeah, you mentioned the movie option. Like, how's that going?
It's been really good so far. I hesitate to say anything other than like anything like definitively, because I feel like I've even like before I was writing and before I was like friendly with like authors and stuff like that, like just as a fan, you'd see like announcements in like Fangoria or in Roomwork or whatever. It's like, oh, they're making a movie out of X, Y, and Z, and then they attach the director, they attach the star, and it's like, oh yeah, and then 5 years later you'll be at a con and like you'll talk with someone like, when would that, why did that fall apart, or why did that ever? So I'm also not trying to jinx myself, but it would be great if it happened. And they have a script. It's a great screenwriter. I'm just waiting minute to minute and getting news about what it might be like, when it might happen. But I hope they do it. But if the movie gods don't see fit to make it come to fruition, still have the book and I'm still very proud of it. But it'd be very cool to see a book that's slasher, which is, slashers are usually movies translated back to a book or translated back to a movie from a book to a movie. It'd be like a Xerox of a Xerox. It's not meta at all. Like the book's not, I mean, you've read it. It's not like it's not Scream. There's no Randy character. There's no, I very purposely was like, what if none of these kids ever talks about horror movies? Like, what if none of them like are that interested in it? So that was like kind of my challenge. I usually use characters that like movies and like things I like. I was like, that was a crutch for too long. Let me just write a bunch of characters that different for them. They're not just like, this is like Friday the 13th Part 3. Like, none of them are thinking that as they're like running for their lives. So, but there would be something interesting in a movie where very consciously coming from a book that's very consciously talking about movies.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. No one's rooting for it harder than me, believe me. I just want to see what Brenda would look like on screen. I want to see what they do with.
Yeah, there's a lot they can work with there. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, because I used to do an episode of like upcoming adaptations and then realize like 2/3 of them would be made and then 1/3 of them would just like disappear. Or like I would hear nothing about them and then they're like, anyway, here they are.
The weirdest way is like, I don't know. I have been like talking with movies and getting more dipping my toes in, and like, just option to script with a co-writer, and doing the movie stuff and then talking to movie people is so different than publishing, and it's such a different like world, and like the littlest things can make projects fall apart, or like they go forward, and the things that you never think would end up being movies or end up being TV shows or movies. So it seems somewhat arbitrary, and a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill. So hopefully we're doing everything right and it becomes a movie. So I have nothing but faith in that team because they're really, really committed, and they really, really want to make a good movie. So,
well, the source material is good. So,
thank you.
You are a big horror reader. So, what is a book according to our scary scale? Like not that scary being room temperature, semi-scary fridge, scary freezer, what would be a freezer book for you?
I hate to be like the thing I already talked about once, because I did a video earlier today, but I've been waiting to talk about this book because I read it a while ago. But The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Have you read that yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene in that. There's several scenes, but there's one scene in that I'd say is like an all-time freezer moment. And it's kind of like towards like the beginning third of the book. And I just found it so audacious and so disturbing. And so, because I didn't quite realize what kind of book and what kind of story I was reading until that happened. This is me like being complete spoiler phobe, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But that book comes out. I think it comes out next week, and so I'd say that's in the freezer for me. You know what? I'm not like the way I just engage with books. I never get super duper scared with books. Like I just enjoy like things that I know I like recognize are scary, or recognize are I'm like, oh, that should haunt me, and then it doesn't, but I appreciate it, just like a sommelier of
that's a good scare
of the disturbing. Yeah, I'm completely a nerd to it because I've like ruined, like, video games will scare me. Movies won't scare me. Books won't scare me. There's something about like playing a horror video game, playing like a Silent Hill or something like that, where those things get me really scared because somehow I'm complicit. Like I have control. Things where I don't have control, the way I interface with books and the way I interface with movies, I just don't get super creeped out anymore. So in Stephen Graham Jones's new book, the fact that there is something that riled me makes it a freezer book for me.
So the jump scares in video games get you more than movie jump scares?
Yeah. There's such a, you talk to horror fans. Horror fans are sometimes dismissive of jump scares. Like, oh, that's not real horror. That's not true dread or whatever. But it doesn't have to be. There's something, there's something physiologically different at work there. And there's something psychologically different at work there. Like a good jump scare is like, I don't know, like a James Wan who can put together jump scare sequences, like, like make it look so easy. Makes all the bad, lame jump scares and all the bad horror movies look that much lamer, because you see, like, wow, this takes real skill, and to like put you in that mindset, and to elicit like a physical reaction out of you, out of a flat image and sound, is something really cool. Like I like a good jump scare. So they don't get me often, but when they get me, I will fully admit that they do.
Do you remember the last time?
That's funny. I kind of can't. I'm like trying to even remember what movie theaters were like, and now I can't. You made me sad, Stephanie, because now I'm like,
I'm sorry.
Oh, what's the last movie movie jump scare? There's a couple good ones in Your Next, and I know that's like literally like half a decade now, going back, but that's like the last time I really remember being like, oh, that was a really good in theater jump scare. Yeah, and again, video games. Like I played Resident Evil 7 not that long ago, and that scares the crap out of me. That makes me jump, but not movies. What for you? What was the last big jump scare?
That's tough. It is hard. I remember like the last one that like got me. I was talking with someone, was the Haunting of Hill House Netflix show.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And
Which one?
the one, I think it's like episode 8, like when it's in the car. And I was like,
Too. That got me too. The bed one too, where you see his feet. Like that was a really good one.
Yeah, might just be like Mike Flanagan, because I was watching Oculus the other day too, and I'm like, oh, this is like creepy. Like, get under your skin, dread.
I'm excited for his revival movie.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he does with it.
Like him going back to King is interesting and good, because I know like a lot of the press around Doctor Sleep was like, why aren't people going to see Doctor Sleep? Should they have called it The Shining 2? But like, I think it proves that this stuff lives forever, because it was just like trending the other day on Twitter. Like people watched it on HBO, and
I just watched it on HBO.
Yeah, exactly. No, like but it was like there was all this doom and gloom about it, and I was like, well, let's hold off. People will find this movie, and people did.
Yeah, I really liked it. Got to watch the director's cut. It's good.
It was good.
Yeah.
So you went to the director's cut. You saw just the director's cut?
Yeah.
I've talked to several people that have either just watched the director's cut or just seen the theatrical, and very few people that have seen both. But I'm thinking I might attempt it. I don't watch a ton of horror movies with my wife, but I liked it so much in the theater that I might just because I want to see the director's cut, I might try it again.
It's quite the time commitment, but
Yeah, it is. It's long. Yeah, it's long.
yeah, but I liked it. I thought he did a good job of like sticking to Doctor Sleep and The Shining book and The Shining movie somehow all in one.
Yeah, yeah. That was what I like. Walked out of the movie theater and it's kind of like not in a bad way, but I was like, who the hell is this for? Like, how did he like this is like a very specific thing. And I was like I just re-listened to like the Shining audiobook, and I was like, if I hadn't done that, like if there's been even 5 years between like me reading it, like I don't know that I would have like 100% put that ending together, put all that stuff together, like it. But it's a confident movie, and it takes like real bravery to be like, no, this is a sequel to a book, a 40-year-old book. Like, wow.
So can you talk about what you're working on now?
A lot of different stuff. I'm looking to do more comics work. I'm looking to do another YA novel. I can't really talk about what it is yet specifically, but it is another thing that is, it's not a slasher. I'm hopping subgenres again, but I want to stick with YA. And I think I have a way into to a type of story that's very popular that doesn't get done as YA a lot. So I'm very excited about that. And I just did I just finished up a run on the Dark Crystal comics with Boom Studios. So I did 4 issues of that, and in October that's gonna come out as a hardcover. And then I kind of got so comfortable in the world of Dark Crystal that I did in the Dark Crystal, the Jim Henson movie from '82, I think '82, and the Netflix show, The Age of Resistance. But I kind of got very comfortable there, and the editors liked me, and the people at the Jim Henson Company liked me, so I did the bestiary along with Iris Pete. I wrote all the stuff about all the different creatures of the Dark Crystal, like the Skeksis and the Gelfling and stuff like that. So that's also in October. So I've got 2 actually all age appropriate books coming out in October, and then this book that is that I'm sure is marketed to younger people, but I'm sure a lot of parents would pick up Climbing a Cornfield and be like, "What the hell are you reading?"
That's awesome. All right. Well, as is Books in the Freezer tradition, do you have a chilling obsession or something you've been enjoying in horror lately?
Chilling obsession. I've watched. I don't usually do this. I don't usually watch like the same director's movies over and over again. But for the past like 3 or 4 weeks, I've only been watching movies that Severin Films put out this box set of this one director's work, Al Adamson. So I've only been watching Al Adamson movies. And the thing that's like notable about Al Adamson, and that if you look up Al Adamson, everyone just he directed a bunch of movies like that Blood of Ghastly Horror and Blood of Dracula's Castle, movies with blood in the title or Dracula in the title, Dracula versus Frankenstein. And he's kind of notorious as being one of the quote unquote worst directors of all time. So I've watched 15 Al Adamson movies. So my brain is like mush. I've just watched these insane movies from the late 60s and to mid 70s in chronological order. So I think that counts as an obsession. Like I've watched, and I'm not quite sure why I did, but I enjoyed every second of it. But that's the weird thing I've been into right now, and I can't really think of anything else just because I've just been watching Al Adamson movies. I've been watching Al Adamson movies, and walking the dog around the block. That's all I've been doing.
That sounds good. That sounds fun. And then something new that I've started doing based on a tweet that I saw is I've been asking people what their final girl or final guy song would be if they were in a slasher movie.
I saw you tweet about this, and then this is going back like weeks or months when I saw this like be a Twitter game, and I didn't think of it then, and then you told me earlier in the day, and I was like, yes, I will. And I can't think of anything, and anything that I say will sound silly because I kind of I was like, well, do you what approach do you take with it? Do you want to get is it a triumphant Eye of the Tiger type something? You would think you'd want that. You would think you'd want a Katy Perry, roar.
Yeah, I leaving it open. Like, are you coming out and sitting and waiting for the cops? Are you like picking up the machete and going after people? Are you like, what is it? It's open.
It could be like counter programming where you play a slow song or like a it's so hard. I don't know. I think the answer's got to be like Taylor Swift, like something off of Reputation, something like that. Those are very forceful. Like, I'm gonna get my revenge songs. What's the like? Look what you made me do. That's
a good one.
That's a good final. That would be my final girl song.
That is a really good one. I was gonna say, yeah, that's a good album for that, because it also has like I Did Something Bad. It's a good one.
Yeah. She's got like that was her, like that was when she was like Taylor was turning heel and she was like getting revenge on people. That was her album. Like, so I was like, that makes sense for.
All right, yeah, that's a good one. I will add it. I have a Spotify playlist where I am keeping people's answers. So if people want to go and check out what people have said, they're
please send it to me. I want to hear everyone's final girl and guy. Yeah.
I haven't been doing it that long, so there's not that many, but it'll keep growing with each episode.
There you go. That's the way to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people find you online?
It's just adamcesare.com. Like, I'm sure it's showing up in their podcast window, my name, if you just do that.com, or search me on Amazon or any bookseller. And if I can spam a little bit, please.
Go for it.
Yeah, please, if you're hearing this and you like slashers, or if you don't even think you like slashers, please pick up Clown in the Cornfield. I would be so appreciative, and I want to know what you think about it, because I'm very, very proud of the book.
Yes, and I second that. Go pick it up. August 25th. Pre-order it now.
Yeah, if you pre-order it now, there's enough time. That's like a month and 18 days. You might even forget, and it'll be like you sent yourself a gift.
Yeah. It'll be good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Twitter at BooksFreezerPod, on Instagram at BooksInTheFreezer, or at Facebook.com/BooksInTheFreezer. You can send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes are at booksinthefreezer.com. You can also find us on Patreon under, of course, Books in the Freezer. Another way to support the podcast is just by doing your normal Amazon shopping and clicking our Amazon link. That'll be in the show notes for you. But of course, you don't have to spend any money to support the podcast. You can spread the word, post on social media, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. All of those things are very important and they are very helpful. So thank you to all of you who have already taken the time to do that. I'm Stephanie. You can find me on Twitter at lady_Gagnon. That's LADY_GAGNON. On Instagram as That's What She Read. That's with 2 A's. And on YouTube as That's What She Read. Join us next time for Books in the Freezer.